So let's start by trying to understand reinforcement learning and get some idea of, what is this thing we're all sitting here to try and learn about and talk about. So to begin with, let's try and sort of place it within the whole field of science. And I think one of the special things about reinforcement learning is that it sort of sits at the intersection of many different fields of science. So we have here in the middle of this sort of Venn diagram, we've got reinforcement learning, and what this is supposed to illustrate is the fact that for many of these different fields of endeavour, there is a branch of that field which actually is trying to study the same problem that we're going to talk about in reinforcement learning. So what is that problem? It's essentially the science of decision making. I think that's what makes it so general and so interesting across many, many different fields. It's a fundamental science. It's trying to understand the optimal way to make decisions. And so this comes up again and again. So in computer science, we study this under the umbrella of machine learning, and specifically reinforcement learning, and that's what we'll look at in this course. But if you go to engineering and talk to people in the engineering world, they have a large part of engineering devoted to what's called optimal control, which essentially is studying the same type of problems with many of the same methods under different names, which is, in other words, how to optimally decide a sequence of actions so as to get the best results at the end of the day. In neuroscience, it turns out that one of the major discoveries in neuroscience in the last couple of decades is actually an understanding of how the human brain actually is believed to make decisions, and that a large part of the human brain is devoted to what's called the dopamine system. And this neurotransmitter dopamine actually exactly reflects one of the main algorithms which we'll study in this course. And so the reward system of the human brain is really studied widely and a major part of neuroscience now, and it's really people there are trying to understand exactly the reinforcement learning methods that we'll talk about in this course, and it's believed to underlie human decision making as well. Again, in psychology, there's been a lot of work going back to Skinner and so forth on classical conditioning and operant conditioning, which again is trying to understand how animals make decisions, how and why animal behavior occurs. If you give them some rewards and you see that this animal start to salivate, the theory that underlies that is essentially reinforcement learning again. In mathematics, there's again an equivalent to reinforcement learning, studying the maths of optimal control again, and it's known as operations research. And finally, in economics, there's the fields of game theory and utility theory and bounded rationality, and these are all, again, getting the same questions of how and why people make decisions if they're trying to optimize their utility. So really, it's something fundamental, and I think it's something of general interest in many different areas. So if we zoom in a bit to this diagram and try to understand, in this course we're going to talk about